In this supplementary lecture, I'm going to go over several things from the main lecture that I felt were a little unclear or that weren't covered and that you need to know for your next web project. We're going to start with checkboxes and the need to treat them as arrays when transmitting their form data to a PHP script. Here you see a form that I have created, and it has 4 checkboxes, and you can see they all have the same name. You're allowed to make as many selections or as few selections from the checkboxes as you want, so it can be anywhere from 0 to 4. And right now you can see there's 4 values, and what I'm going to do is submit them, as you can see, to a script named f.php. So let's just take a quick look at f.php. All it's doing is it's creating an ordered list, then it is going through the qualifications, and it is going to print them out one at a time. If I type in the web address, and let's see, we will check these 2 and submit the query, you see it shows up correctly, late and comment. If I go back, late and comment, I submit. It works. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to go into f.html, and I'm going to forget to put the square brackets after quals. So I'm going to take them out like that, write it again, go back and reload, and let's select these 3, and I submit the query and nothing shows up. And you're wondering, okay, what happened? What happened is that when you failed to put the square brackets there, only one selection ends up getting submitted to GetPost. And that's a problem because the script that I wrote was expecting an array, not a string. So when the for each command executes, it gets a string, and when it tries to iterate through the elements of that string, it fails because it's not an array, and hence you get this screen. Now, unfortunately, this one is a little bit hard to test. The easiest way I can show you that this is not going to work properly is with the PHP CGI command. CGI is the Common Gateway Interface, and it's the way that browsers communicate with servers. It provides a standard way for bundling up form data and sending it to a server. Now, PHP-CGI is a program you'll want to use for testing during your web project too, because it allows you to simulate passing form data to a PHP script. But you have to use PHP-CGI rather than PHP. It runs on the Hydras. It does not run on my home computer, so you have to be careful about where you run it. So you can see here I'm running it on the Hydra machines. So I'm going to give it the file name, and then you give it the name of your name value pairs that simulate your form data. So here I'm going to start with doing it the right way with quals equals, and notice I put it in the array in quotes. I'll show you in a moment what happens if I don't use quotes. Equals comment and quals equals late. And I run it, and you can see while I did not put in new line characters, I get the LI for comment, and I get a separate li for late. Now I'm going to rerun this, and instead of giving it an array, actually first I'm going to rerun it. I'm going to get rid of these quotes just to show you that Unix isn't going to like it. So it says bad pattern, and that's a Unix. The Z shell is not knowing what happened. So if I'm going to give array data, the way I do it is with quotation marks. You can also see that you specify the same item multiple times, and that's what causes it to become an array. Okay, again, works properly. Now, I am going to give quals only one string. And now you can see I get a PHP warning, invalid argument supplied for each on line 3. And the reason it's an invalid argument is it's expecting an array and it's getting a string, and that's what's causing the blank screen here. Now, unfortunately, you maybe would have some difficulty debugging this particular script unless you knew that forgetting to put the brackets with the checkboxes in PHP is going to cause it to transmit only one selection rather than multiple selections. The last thing we're going to look at is another example of HTML entities. In the main lecture, we saw how a hacker could launch a cross-site scripting attack if you weren't careful about using HTML entities to convert HTML characters to entity codes. In particular, there was an example where the hacker created a link where it looked like you were simply ordering the post, but in fact you were downloading a virus. I want to show you a more benign error that can occur, but it's still going to mess you up if you don't use HTML entities. So what I have is a very simple form. As you see here, it's a text box, and I submit the query. So here's what I did. I just created an input with the name equal comments, and the action is t.php. Now let's look at t.php. It prints the result is right here, and then it again just tries to echo it back by using a text box. And this is an idiom you can use in your web project, which is to substitute in a value from a PHP variable. You use this little angle bracket question mark equal, then the variable you want to interpolate into the value field, and then you end it with a question mark greater than. And notice that you put all your attribute values in quotes, so there's a quote around it like this. So what we're going to do first is simply say hi Brad, and when we submit the query we get hi Brad. So far so good. Now we're going to say hi Brad, how are you? And we're going to put the how are you in double quotes, and when we submit the query all we get is hi Brad. We don't get how are you. Well, what happened? Here's the problem. This double quote here is the problem. If we look at our value field right here, let's see what gets substituted for $get comments. It substitutes this value right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually perform that substitution. Well, you can see what is happening is that we are prematurely terminating the string with this quote right here. So all that gets printed is hi Brad. The way you get around this problem is with HTML entities. So instead of us, just a moment, we're going to add an HTML entities to this. And that will convert each of the quotes to the appropriate entity code. Now we're going to go back. Oops. We're going to submit it. And now we got it exactly as you would expect. And the reason for that is now the double quotes here, the way it ended up being pasted in here was that when HTML entities returned, you ended up with something like, whoops, and you had the entity code for a quote. And all was well. So this is another example where you have to be very careful about using a function like HTML entities to convert special characters like double quotes to entity codes so that they don't mess up your PHP scripts.